Seems I didn't start the recording earlier, so I already got part of the box open. But we didn't get the Sauron deck finished the other day, so I'm gonna finish it today. We have to send back in the extra deck they sent us to get our money back, and then I can rebuy all four precons again and wait for those to come in because I was planning on having these two decks and four additional precons. We still have the two sample collector booster deals to open. Sadly, the blue-white legendary commander that we wanted for our Gundor deck was not inside of the precon deck. Um, for the humans. So that's something to consider if you're going to get these. When it comes to the Sauron deck, the commander that I'm looking for is the blue-black Lord of the Nazgul card. I'm guessing if the other one wasn't inside the other deck, then that card's not going to be inside this deck, which kind of sucks, but maybe we can get it out of one of these, like at least one of them out of one of these collector boosters. And then when we get our collector booster box, maybe we'll be able to get one of those commanders out of there. Hopefully, I'm probably going to end up having to buy a bunch of singles for Lord of the Rings, but we'll have to see. And this thick card that we had from the other box, I thought this was just like an extra thick, sturdy card. I actually like how durable this is, but it's actually just like a box topper or something. Like it's like a card art design. But however, I just consider it probably a card anyway because it has the magic thing and all the card specs on it. So I don't see why you couldn't use it as a card. So they basically give me two. Um, the extra thick nature of this card though, it just doesn't feel like it'll bend. It doesn't feel like it's gonna get damaged at all, and that's what was really interesting me about whatever this is that was in the other box. I was gonna sleeve it, but I wasn't sure if it was an actual card, and it doesn't seem like it's gonna bend or anything. So actually really nice. But I'm not seeing one of those for this deck, so that's. Let me get these tokens real quick. Yeah, there is. Yeah. Huh. So you basically get two off the bat because like this is the Sauron version. So you get legendary creature Avatar Horror. When you cast a spell, amass Orcs 5, mill 5 cards, and then return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Has trample whenever commander opponent controls dies during Tempshu. I think this is going to be a really good like secondary commander for these decks. My plan is to actually get the other Sauron card at some point to be the commander. I think it's a 5 drop. And then this card is going to be like the secondary. So, like, after the other one dies a few times, you run across this one. It's just like you can pop it in, you can get a couple of orcs, maybe try to swing in for some damage. Should be pretty interesting. So, I'm going to pop this down over here with the other card. Then we get orc tokens, we get food tokens, we get goblin tokens, we get wraith tokens. I actually really like that, the wraith token. There's a dragon token with Flying Menace. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to target player, gain control of target artifact. That's interesting. And we get treasure tokens. We get a lot of Wraith tokens. I plan on making a pretty serious Wraith deck um, with these cards for the Witch King. So that's going to be something pretty big because personally, I think that these Wraith cards are super strong, or at least they could be. Because the Lord of the Nazgul is a 5-cost flying Wraith Noble. I don't think he's going to be in here, but the race you control have protection from ring bearers, and then whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you create a 3/3 black Wraith creature token with Menace. Maybe they actually is in here since those tokens are in here. Um, And if you control 9 or more wraiths, race you control have base power 9/9. But he's also a Wraith Noble, and there's the other Witch King card that can give you another Wraith, and then you have the 9 Riders on top of that, which can like increase all of your Wraith's damage. So you're looking at already like 10 to 12 cards that are Wraith bound. So we got Sauron, Lord of the Dark Reigns, and Saruman of the White Hand, which actually has both of these have really nice artwork. I actually like that quite a bit. Sauron's probably going to be the main commander of this deck if I was to play it as is because he's cheaper. But whenever you cast a non-creature spell, amass Orcs X, where X is the spell's mana value. Goblins and Orcs you control have Ward 2, which is kind of interesting. They have so basically, you're casting your spells, you get a copy of those spells, then you're going to be able to amass bigger armies, and you get natural protection with him. And he's a 4-drop, so 2/5, not too shabby. But we don't have really any extra cards sleeves that we can use. But Treason of Isengard, put up to one target instant sorcery card from your graveyard on top of your library and amass Orcs 2. That's pretty interesting. And somewhat interesting to try, I think, would be with this. Bitter Downfall. So this creature spell costs 3 less to cast if it targets a creature who has dealt damage this turn. Destroy target creature's controller loses 2 life. I think this is kind of interesting. So like right now, I think these are fine in here, but eventually when I separate these, like Treason of Isengard is going to go with the Sauron deck. Bitter Downfall would probably go with the Nazgul deck because I can't remember in the movies, but when Boromir dies, I think it was from orcs following the Nazgul, but maybe it was Saruman. I don't remember. We got Troll of Khazad-dûm. Can't be blocked by 3 or more creatures. Has swamp cycling. I actually like these cards on the Magic Arena, especially the Northern Eagles, but I don't know how well they'll do in Commander. They're still going to be decent. They give you that like buff, but the plane cycling's pretty nice for standard stuff. Fell Beast. Enters the battlefield. Each opponent sacrifices a creature. Create a food token for each creature sacrificed this way. I don't know exactly how useful that is, but it's probably alright. We got Fiery Inscription. When it enters the battlefield, the ring tempts you. Whenever you cast an instant sorcery spell, deals 2 damage to each opponent. That'd be alright. I don't know if it's going to be the best thing in the world, but it'll be okay. The ring tempting use is going to be additional flavor. But if we are limiting ourselves, I don't think I'm going to limit my Gundor deck to being only Lord of the Rings card, because I would like to use it in all the formats. But if I build these Lord of the Rings decks, most likely I'm going to have only Lord of the Rings cards in it. So anything else will just be vetoed, and that would kind of keep it somewhat balanced, maybe. Amass Orcs 2, when you do, until end of turn, gain control of target non-layered creature. Opponent controls with power less than or equal to the amassed army's power. Interesting. So, I mean, if you had this this is a goblin soldier. Did they have goblins in their army? Because I don't recall there being goblins in the army in the movies anyway. But this guy wouldn't be a bad commander if you could flicker him, but in red that'd be kind of hard to do. But interesting, a legendary creature goblin soldier. You know. But maybe they do. I mean, the orcs, I don't recall the goblins very much, but he looks more like some of the orcs in the movie. So maybe there was goblins in there, they just look different. Arcane Denial. Counter target spell, its controller may draw up to 2 cards at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. You draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. Interesting. So, I mean, you could counter yourself if you wanted to and then draw like 3 cards off of this. Probably wouldn't be mana intensive, but like if you had Saruman on the field, you cast like a simple spell and then you counter it with this, then you draw 3 cards and then you amass you'd amass orcs. I mean, Boon of the Wishgiver. Cycling 1 and draw 4 cards for 6 mana. This is interesting because it's Saruman giving out rings. I suppose you could put this in every deck, but I would be more tempted to put this in the Sauron deck itself. Potentially, I could put it in the Nazgul deck. I don't think it really fits Saruman too much. We've got Consider for 1 mana, Surveil 1, and draw a card. Not too bad. I like the art. Deep Analysis. Target player draws 2 cards. Flashback for 2, pay 3 life. You may cast this card from the graveyard for its flashback cost and exile it. So, I mean, for 6 mana in total. You could get 4 cards. I mean, it's not the best, not the worst, I guess. Fact or fiction. This has Wormtail taking over the king. For the top 5 cards of your library, an opponent separates those cards into 2 piles. Put one pile in your hand and the other into the graveyard. It's all right. Forbidden Alchemy, 3 cost. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. It has flashback for 7. Sauron card though, so I'd put that in this deck probably. Things like Feed the Swarm, I think we could put pretty much in any deck that's evil in this set. Um, Destroy target creature, enchantment, and opponent controls, and use life equal to the permanent's mana value. I think the life loss is kind of interesting in these decks, particularly if you don't put any outside cards in them, because there's going to be a limited amount of life that you're going to be able to get with these decks. Merciless Executioner. Each player sacrifices a creature. It's a 3/1 body. Revenge of the Ravens enchantment. 4 mana. Whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, that creature controls 1 life, and you gain 1 life. That's interesting because I think that would trigger off of each creature, which means like if people attack you, you're just automatically going to gain a bunch of life, and they're going to lose. Like they attack you with 10 creatures, I think that you would gain 10 life maybe there, and they would lose 10 life automatically. I don't know exactly how that works. Seems pretty good. Anger for 4 incarnation haste. As long as anger is in your graveyard and you control mountain creatures you control have haste. That's actually really nice. I like that. Something I might put in Queen Marchesa deck, potentially. Just because you could summon this for 4, have a 2/2, and then when it dies and it's in your graveyard, just everything you're gonna have haste for the rest of the game. It's nice. Faithless Looting. Draw 2 cards and discard 2 cards. Flashback 3 for 1 mana. So we got Mouth of Sauron. Whenever it enters the battlefield, target player mills 3 cards, then amass Orcs X, where X is the number of instant sorcery cards in that player's graveyard. It sounds like you might want to do that to yourself here, but I don't know. See, with Mouth of Sauron, I'd probably have in the Sauron deck, but I feel like you could potentially put that in the Nazgul deck if you wanted as well. But we haven't seen the blue-black Nazgul, so I don't know how that's working here. Goblin Crate Maker. Pay 1, sacrifice, deals 2 damage to target creature, or destroy colors non-land permanent. The Goblin Warriors and stuff, I don't know if you have enough to make a Goblin deck, but I don't recall Goblins in the movies so much. I mean, there was archers that might have been goblins. I don't recall. I mean, you did have the Mountain Pass. I guess Sauron might have sent them to the Mountain Pass when the Balrog showed up. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Gutter Snipe deals 2 damage to each opponent. Goblin Shaman. Interesting. Shiny Impetus. Enchant creature. Enchant creature gets 2/2 and is goaded. Whenever enchanted creature attacks, you create a treasure token. I like that. Shiny Impetus. I would put that in the Queen Marchesa deck probably. I mean, 3 mana to enchant a creature and it can't attack you and it's goaded. And then whenever it attacks, you get a treasure token. So like basically 3 mana, it's like you can't hit me and I'm gonna get benefits off of you. I like that. I like that a good bit. As additional cost to cast this spell, draw a card or discard a card, then draw 2 cards. Thrill of Impossibility. Has more goblins on there. 100 ladders are raised against the battlements, over the wall and under the wall. The last assault came, sweeping like a dark wave upon a hill of sand. Hmm. Extract from darkness. So each player mills 2 cards. Then you put a creature from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. The power of their master is in them, and they stand or fall by him. This is interesting. 5 cost. Each player mills 2, and then you're putting a creature from a graveyard under your control permanently. That's interesting. I'd probably put that in Sauron, in a Sauron deck, potentially in the Nazgul deck. Um, I guess you could probably fit this in all of them because Sauron kind of makes creatures out of the dirt in the movies, but Arcane Signet, Basalt Monolith. That's interesting. Just a 3 mana power spike. Commander Sphere. Ever-flowing Chalice. That's interesting as well. Looks like they're dumping a bunch of potions into a barrel, but yeah, that's an interesting card to put in here. I guess, everything's mana hungry, so it makes sense. Maybe you want some bigger mana, so you get a Mind Stone. We got Crusaders of Umbar, so human pirates. Target goblin, orc, or pirate can't be blocked this turn. There's a lot of cards in this set that make your stuff unblockable, which I find pretty interesting. Whenever Crusaders of Umbar deal combat damage to a player, amass Orcs 3. God, this stuff could pop off so hard. Like basically, it's a 4-drop card that like just swings in and just makes something huge. That's Monstrosity of the Lake. The Monstrosity of the Lake enters the battlefield. You may pay 5. If you do, tap all creatures your opponent controls. Then put a stunner counter on each of those creatures. So this is the Watcher in the Water, basically, but I guess different. Also, I guess that's a Sauron. I don't know who controls the Kraken exactly in the movies. I think it's more connected with Saruman, but it seems like it would be kind of like a Mordor thing. Subjugate the hobbits. I'm guessing this is something. Gain control of each non-commander creature with mana value 3 or less. That's really, really good. That's really good. I mean, 7 mana, but basically, you play this card, and man, you're taking over the whole board. It's not even close. And I could run this in the Gundor deck if I really wanted to. But the thing is, I guess this is more from the books, maybe, because it looks like Sauron's taking over the hobbits, which I don't think he did anything like movie-wise. I don't think there's a whole lot going on there. Shelob Dread Weaver, so we got a spider demon. Whenever a non-token creature an opponent controls dies, exile it. Put a creature card exiled with Shalob's Dreadweaver into its owner's graveyard. Put 2 1/1 counters on Shalob, draw a card. Huh. Yeah, I think Saruman as the commander would make the most sense. Just because in the movies he's like the first person that the people fight, and a 4-drop means this is probably going to be the first thing that you get out on the battlefield. But we haven't seen anything that makes wraiths yet. But we have wraith tokens, so I don't know on this. Cavern Horde Dragon. So this is Baby Smog. Cost X to cast, where X is the greatest number of artifacts an opponent controls. Flying, trample, haste. Whenever Cavern Horde Dragon deals combat damage to a player, you create a treasure token for each artifact that player controls. Which, it's alright. Orcish Siege Master. Trample. Other ogres and goblins you control have trample. Whenever Orcish Siege Master attacks, it gets X0 until end of turn, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So it's going to gain the same power as your army, probably. And it's going to have trample and give things trample. So, I mean, that's a pretty strong card. Rampaging War Mammoth. Trample, cycling. When you cycle, the Mammoth destroy up to X target artifacts. So that's interesting. So you're going to get 3 to cycle. So you're looking at 4 for land destruction. Balrog of Moria. Mines of Moria. Trample, haste, 8/8. Black and red card. When the Balrog of Moria dies, you may exile it. When you do, for each opponent, exile up to 1 target creature that player controls. Cycle 4. When you cycle the Balrog, create 2 treasure tokens. See, I would like this to be a commander for the Goblin decks, but it's like if you exile it, that's it. Like that's the end of it. Okay, so we got some blue cards coming right here, so this is pretty interesting. So we got Grima Saruman's Footman. I have no idea who this is. It looks like it's supposed to be Wormtongue, maybe, but it's not. Grima Saruman's Footman can't be blocked. When Grima deals combat damage to a player, that player exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile an instant or sorcery card. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Then that player puts the exile cards that weren't cast this way on the bottom of their library in a random order. So this is interesting. Maybe like in the movies, maybe they combined this person and Wormtongue together, because in the movies Wormtongue gets banished, he goes back to Sauron, and he's like sitting kind of in the same spot that this guy's at. But it's interesting that he's unblockable. Like, you see, there's like 5, 6 cards that are unblockable in both of these decks, pretty much. On top of other cards that you could get, they give you unblockable. But the Monarch really isn't an ability in this game. But with the ring, if I do a ring battle version where the ring comes in and anyone can take it like the Monarch, these would be really strong cards. In the darkness, bind them. All right, okay, so this is where they have Wraiths in there right there. Oh, there is Lord of the Nazgul in here. So I would prefer Lord of the Nazgul to be the commander, but he doesn't have all the colors, so we would need him to have his own deck. Then there's also, that means that we need the Witch King card, the mono black Witch King card, and we need the mono black Sauron the Necromancer card for that deck in particular. But this 5-drop, you get 3 turns where you create a Wraith creature token with Menace, and the ring tempts you. For each opponent, gain control of up to 1 target creature that player controls until end of turn. Untap those creatures, they gain haste, and the ring tempts you. I think this could potentially be good for Mordor and a Saruman deck. I mean, you're getting 9 wraiths here off of 1 card, or you're getting 3 wraiths with Menace, and you're getting to take somebody's creature for a turn, so that's pretty good. So the Witch King wouldn't have access to this because he wouldn't have red mana in the deck that I'm building, but Saruman and Mordor would, which also means that you could use those wraiths to kind of poke around a little bit, like the movie, like the early ones. Lidless Gaze. So Exile the top card of each player's library until the end of the next turn. You may play those cards, and the mana of you may play those cards, and mana of any type can be spent to cast them. And it has flashback, so that's interesting. So once you get a bunch of mana, that's gonna be pretty good. Lord of the Nazgul, so you get 5 blue. It's basically blue black, 5 mana. Um, Legendary creature Wraith Noble, flying. Ring bears, you control protection from ring bears. When you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a 3/3 black Wraith creature token with menace. Then, if you control 9 or more Wraiths, Wraiths you control have base power and toughness 9/9. Now, the reason I think he's going to be a very, very strong commander is because if you have all of the Nazgul, first off, he's a 5-drop 4/3 flying, and you get protection from ring bears, which is okay. But I mean, instant sorcery spells, you're making wraiths, and then you're gonna have 9 Nazgul in your deck that'll come down and boost all of your wraiths up, which means you're gonna pretty consistently find one of those to boost these things up probably. And then those things have death touch, so like a wraith deck is gonna be absurdly powerful. But if you get board wiped, that's gonna be the problem. Moria Scavenger, death touch haste. Discard a card, draw a card. If the discarded card was a creature, amass Orcs 1. Death touched haste. Orc Rogue. See, this orc looks more like a goblin. Discard a card, draw a card. Discard a card was a creature card. So yeah, so you get a Mass Orcs 1, and you get a draw card. Summons of Saruman. Amass Orcs X, mill X cards. You may cast an instant or sorcery spell with mana value X or less from among them without paying its mana cost. Exile X cards from your graveyard. Interesting. For flashback, you exile graveyard cards, which means the cards that you mill are then going to let you use this a second time, which is kind of interesting. Uh, the thing with the army cards is like they're not super powerful, but they're kind of good. But with the number of cards that give you unblockable, like if you're going to build a deck around this stuff, you just need things that give your army unblockable, and literally you just one-shot people. Because like this card right here, you could amass an army that's like 10-10 like pretty easy, and then just give it unblockable and smack somebody pretty hard. And then you could just remake the things, or you could make it twice as big like the next turn. Too greedily, too deep. Put target creature card from a graveyard on the battlefield under your control. That creature deals damage equal to its power to each other creature. So like, this is another one that's like a pretty expensive card. I mean, you're putting a creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield, so like any creature card, and then that creature is dealing damage to all other creatures. So if you have a pretty big creature, so like I don't know how big Lord of the Nazgul was. He's a 4/3. But like the Balrog of Moria, basically you could fight with him, he dies, everyone exiles creature cards, and then he'd be an 8/8, and then you could do two Greeley, two Greep for 7 mana, bring back the Balrog, and then basically board wipe everything, which would be pretty epic. It's also black red though, so we wouldn't be able to use this in the Nazgul deck, but Saruman and Sauron could be good. Wake the Dragon. Create a 6/6 black and red dragon creature token with flying, menace, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, gain control of target artifact that player controls. That's also a pretty powerful thing there. Because it's like they could just take control of the One Ring pretty easily here. And it has flashback. So you're looking at 6-drop for a 6/6, and then flashback for 8. So most likely you're going to be able to get 2 6/6 flying tokens off of that, probably. The Relic of Sauron, so you're getting 3 types of mana there. You can draw 2 cards and discard a card for 3. See, the Black Gate is another one. Enters the battlefield, you may pay 3 life. If you don't, it enters the battlefield tapped, but you can add it 1 black mana or pay 2. Choose a player with the most life or tied for the most life. Um, Target creature can't be blocked by creatures that player controls this turn, which is pretty interesting. So, like, if you're behind, you can just smack someone really hard with an army. I'd put this in the Mordor deck. Um, Maybe not the Nazgul deck, as odd as that sounds, just because the Nazgul aren't coming through the Black Gate. But, or actually, well, hold up. No, yeah, because Mordor has the Black Gate, so I'd probably put that in the Mordor deck. Decree of Pain, 8 cost. These have a lot of mana. Like, there's a pretty massive mana on these cards to use. Um, Destroy all creatures. They can't be regenerated. Draw a card for each creature destroyed this way. So, I mean, 8 mana for a board wipe, but also you get to draw cards, which is pretty good. And it has cycling for 5, which is eh. But when you cycle it, all creatures get -2/-2 in turn. So you could do a board wipe that gives you a bunch of cards, or you could get rid of a bunch of tokens um, pretty easily while getting a 1 card draw, which is, I guess, probably decent. Languish, 4 mana. All creatures get -4/-4 until end of turn. That's interesting. It seemed in the Tender of the Sick that on the Halfling and on the Lady of Rohan, this Milady lay heavy. I think it's supposed to be Melody, but it's like Milady. Soon they began to fall down into the darkness, and as the sun turned west, the gray shadow crept over their faces. Interesting. Living Death, 5 mana. Each player exiles all creature cards from their graveyard, then sacrifices all creatures they control, then puts all cards they exiled this way onto the battlefield. So, this is interesting because you could get the Balrog back, you could get all of your Nazgul back at one time. So, like, if you had 9 Nazgul plus your Wraith plus Sauron and all that in your graveyard, and Living Death comes down, all of their stuff is going to be back on the battlefield, but also you would get all of your race procking, which would give you a huge, powerful creatures with Death Touch. Oh, I could see that being pretty good. And we got Reanimate. For 1 mana, put target creature card from a graveyard on the battlefield under your control. You lose life equal to its mana value. But the ring race themselves cannot be so easily destroyed. So this is interesting. So I'd put this in the ring race deck. I'd put this in the Mordor deck. With Sauron, I probably should put it in there, but I probably wouldn't, just because he isn't necessarily um, a necromancer. I wouldn't think, but it's also a pretty cheap spell that they could amass orcs with. So who knows? Spell Blasphemous Act. Oh, sorry, so that's a board wipe that deals damage to everything. It's pretty good. Goblin Dark Dweller. When Goblin Dark Dwellers enters the battlefield, you may cast target instant or sorcery card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. Okay. Inferno Titan. I think these are the things that were fighting in the mountains, maybe. So 6-drop for a 6/6. Pay 1 red. It gets 1/0 until end of turn. Whenever Inferno Titan enters the battlefield or attacks, it deals 3 damage divided as you choose among 1, 2, or 3 targets. I'm going to assume these are the creatures that were fighting in the mountains during the movies. That's what's interesting with the Sauron thing. So, like, Sauron has orcs, ringwraiths, and, like, Easterlings and stuff under his control or whatever. And the Balrogs. But it seems like movie-wise, I'm guessing Sauron was like leading the goblins and controlling the Watcher in the water and controlling the mountain giants and stuff. And while he was making his orcs, potentially, is what they're saying. Hmm. Knoll Spine Dragon, 7-drop. Enters the battlefield, you may discard your hand and draw cards equal to the damage dealt to target opponent this turn. Interesting. So you want to deal damage and then summon this? Or can you summon it, deal damage, and then... Hmm. Of the 7 rings of power the Dwarf Kings possessed, 3 Saruman has recovered, and the others the dragons have consumed. Scourge of the Throne. So we had a Gundor Tower getting wiped out by a dragon, which is pretty cool. Flying Dethrone. Whenever this creature attacks the player with the most life or tied for the most life, put a 1/1 counter on it. Whenever Scourge of the Throne attacks for the first time each turn, if it's attacking the player with the most life or tied for the most life, untap all attacking creatures. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase. That's interesting. This also means that with these two sets combined, you have like Combat Celebrant and this, which would give you 2 red cards for a deck that you could use um, to have multiple combat turns, which is pretty interesting. Hmm. 5/5 flying with Dethrone. Siege Gang Commander, so we got a Goblin. When Siege Gang Commander enters the battlefield, create 3 1/1 red Goblin creature tokens. Pay 2, sacrifice a Goblin. Siege Gang Commander deals 2 damage to any target. This is interesting just because like you could make a really powerful Goblin deck for Lord of the Rings if you wanted to. If you used outside cards, because like Krinko as a commander with any of these, you could just keep doubling and keep sacking. Like this, if you have any source of creating Goblin tokens and you just sacrifice Goblins and deal 2 damage to any target over and over again, it'd be pretty crazy. Treasure Nabber. Whenever an opponent taps an artifact from mana, gain control of that artifact until the end of turn. Next turn. 3-drop, 3/2. Like stuff like that's pretty strong. They have the other one. I forget what it's called, but I used it before on my other my artifact decks. You like tap it and take control of an artifact for like a turn or something. So like there's a bunch of goblin cards that actually take artifacts, which is actually kind of nice. As well as the dragons on top of that. So hostage taker. It's another pirate. See, I would be more interested. So, like the Nazgul in the movies, they do have an orc army, which I'm not opposed to, but I'd be more interested to use these human pirates with the Nazgul deck, because they had the Easterlings fighting Gundor on that ones. But when Hostage Taker enters the battlefield, exile another target creature or artifact until Hostage Taker leaves the battlefield. You may cast that card for as long as it remains exiled, and mana type of any type can be spent to cast it. Excellent. That's interesting. So you exile something off the battlefield, and then you can cast it. Notion Thief, Human Rogue. 4-drop, Flash. If an opponent would draw a card except the first one they draw each turn of their draw steps, instead that player skips that draw, and you draw a card. That's a pretty strong card here. I mean, pretty strong. I think there's another card that does this for like mono white or something. Well, there's the cat, yeah. Makes them draw one. This guy actually just takes their draws, which is pretty interesting. Choked Emissary. We got Desolate Lighthouse. Dragon Skull Summit. See, stuff like this is interesting. Enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a swamp or a mountain, and it's black-red. So, like, even things like this we could put in our Marchesa deck that I want to build. And it's actually on theme with a lot of the stuff that I want to put in there anyway, because I want to make a proxy commander for that deck. Because Dragon Skull Summit here, it's like perfect artwork for what I want to do. We got Drowned Catacomb. They got blue-black. Forbidden Ruins. Foreboding Ruins. Reveal a swamp or mountain card from your hand. If you don't, Forbidden Ruins enters the battlefield tapped, but it's also a dual land. So there's stuff like this that's just pretty interesting because it could potentially come in untapped. But it's also a dual land for mana fixing, which we could use for the Marchesa deck, which I like. Frostboil Snarl. Enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more basic lands. So these things like this, Smoldering Marsh. Pretty good, dual land. See, all I'd need is like probably a bunch of these dual lands with my Marchesa deck, and then probably like, I don't know, 5 to 10 of each of the basic lands, and then artifacts to pull out my basic lands, and then whenever I ran across these, I'll just get a free dual land down. Sulphurous Spring, so you get black, red. Deals 1 damage to you. Sunken Hollow enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more lands. Okay, we got a Soul Ring with Sauron. Worn Power Stone with different art. I like it. Command Tower. Crumbling Necropolis is. I like that. They need something like that that's black, red, white. I could put it in the Marchesa deck. So Evolving Wilds, Field of Ruin, Path of Ancestry, Rogue's Passage again. Another unblockable. Terramorphic Expanse, and we got a bunch of water. And we got some mountains. Ooh, crap. Of course, I would drop everything. So I would say Sauron probably going in the 99. Saruman. Would probably be the commander for this deck. I had to pick up these cards. Pardon me, pupper. Didn't mean to disturb your nap. Oh. I'm getting old. I am getting old. I could temporarily use my card sleeves that I bought for my Marchesa deck for this one. Not necessarily something that I want to do, but I don't have any sleeves for these, and I wouldn't mind trying this deck out tomorrow. So my Marchesa deck sleeves are going to be this guy. Pretty good. Pretty good stuff. I'll go ahead and sleeve these up though, so I'll have something I can play. And then we'll just have to replace these sleeves and stuff later. But I'm gonna open these sample packs really quick. If there's anything good in here, maybe it'd be worthwhile. I don't really know. But we have 2 of these. We're gonna get 4 more when we get the other commander packs. We got a Sauron the Dark Lord and a Grey Havens. Legendary creature avatar horror. We got 3, 1 blue, 1 black, 1 red. Ward 1. Sacrifice a legendary artifact or legendary creature. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, the mass works 1. Whenever an army you control deals combat damage to a player the ring tempts you, whenever the ring tempts you, you may discard your hand. If you do, draw 4 cards. Nice artwork. I like it. Grey Havens enters the battlefield, scry 1. Looks like an elf card. Add 1 mana of any color among the legendary creature cards in your graveyard. Kind of sad that I open these right now, because that's kind of... I don't have enough stuff to keep all these. But Sauron the Dark Lord. So let me check this deck real quick, because that's potentially a different commander that we would have gotten. You have like the Mouth of Sauron. I guess the question is, would that be better or worse as a commander? It's a 6-drop where Sauron is a 4-drop. So we got Sauron the White Hand for 4, 2/5. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, amass Orcs X, where X is the spell's mana value. And the Goblins and Orcs get Ward 2. But Sauron the Dark Lord, you get a 6-drop. Sacrifice a legendary artifact or creature to give it Ward. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, amass Orcs 1. Whenever an army you control deals combat damage to a player. Yeah, I don't know what would be better. I think Sauron probably be better, but it's whenever you cast a non-creature spell. So we have creature 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. It's like 30 something cards. I mean, there's probably, close to 40 cards that could trigger Sauron here, so it's not terrible. Question is, what card would I take out to put Sauron the Dark Lord in this deck? I mean, I could take out Cavern Horde Dragon. It's more of a Hobbit card anyway, but it's also a pretty good card for getting additional mana, so there is that. Discard a card and draw 2 cards. I think Troll of Khazad-dûm we could probably take out. It's 6 mana, so it's basically the same cost. Can't be blocked except by 3 or more creatures. It's a 6/5 with swamp cycling. So it's potentially better than the Dark Lord early game, but later on, not even close. So I will drop Troll of Khazad-dûm for Sauron the Dark Lord. Each opponent sacrifices a creature. All right, let's see what's in the other sample pack real quick. Kind of interesting to see. Also, our booster pack is going to be one of the later prints probably because we're not getting it until the end of the month. So I'm assuming it's going to take a while to get shipped out, which means it's probably not one of the first prints boxes. My guess would be, which is what we want. All right, we have Witch King of Agmar. That's the card that we wanted right there. It's the one that we were missing for the other deck. And we got Legolas kill count, counter of kills. So full art, Witch King of Agmar. Whenever one or more creatures deal combat damage to you, each opponent sacrifices a creature that dealt damage to you this turn. Discard a card. Witch King of Agmar gains indestructible until end of turn. So 5/3 for 5, flying. Makes people sacrifice cards and can get indestructible. That's a pretty good pull for me. I'm actually pretty hyped about that. Legolas counter of kills, 4 cost, blue, and green. So there's not. We can't use this card, sadly, in any of these decks. But if we get the elf deck, we can. Whenever you scry, if Legolas counter of kills is tapped, you may untap it. And do this only once each turn. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, put a 1/1 counter on Legolas. So this is the card I would use for the Fellowship deck with Aragon the Uniter, probably. But we don't. We need some card sleeves for these two. Grey Havens, I think I'll probably keep it out of the other deck. And I'll keep it with Legolas counter of kills for now. Because those will go in an elf deck. Okay, Witch King of Agmar, we're going to need another card replacement for that. That is a 5-drop, 5/3 flying. So that's pretty interesting. So I'll probably replace a flyer with it, but we'll have to see. I don't know if I have any additional card sleeves anywhere. I have some plastic cases. Let's see. Witch King of Agmar. Let's see what we can get with this. Okay, so we're looking at a 5-drop sort of semi-removal card. Potentially we could replace Cavern Horde Dragon with this. Fell Beast enters the battlefield. Each opponent sacrifices a creature. Create a food token. So it's a 6-drop. 4/4 flying. That makes people sacrifice a creature. I could probably drop this Fell Beast for the Witch King. Lowers the mana just a little bit. I mean, a bigger body, still flying. Similar effect. Probably be alright. Lord of the Nazgul. Yeah, but this means that when we start building our other deck, we have Lord of the Nazgul and we have the Witch King already in there. So we need Sauron the Necromancer for that deck if we're going to do it. So that's going to be pretty big. And then we're just going to go ahead and use my Queen Marchesa deck sleeves for these. So Saruman the White Hand is going to be the commander for now. Sauron Lord of the Rings will be one of the 99. The Witch King of Agmar will be one of the 99. Sauron the Dark Lord will be one of the 99, and this is also going to be the commander of the Sauron deck. So eventually, when we do make our Sauron deck, it's going to be Sauron the Dark Lord as the commander and Sauron Lord of the Rings as one of the 99. That means that we'll get a 6-drop commander for Sauron that also, whenever an opponent casts a spell, Amassworks 1, which means really strong commander potentially. And sacrificing a legendary artifact or a legendary creature for ward on this is actually going to be pretty nice if we have anything that can tempt us. But if we're sticking to purely Lord of the Rings cards for these decks, it could get a little messy, I'm sure. Okay. So I'll go ahead and take these. I'm happy that my Marchesa sleeves are going to be a lot smoother. I don't think I would probably prefer what I'm probably going to end up doing is getting a bunch of like the Gandalf wizard sleeves for the Lord of the Rings decks. That way, like when I make my full set of Lord of the Rings cards, it's going to just be everything with the same back sleeves. So if I want to change any of the cards out, I won't have any problems. I think that'd probably be the best way to do it. I will go ahead and check at Walmart when I'm going to drop off my package to get my refund today and see if I can find a 4-pack or if they're selling them over there for like 50 bucks. At which case I would buy all 4 precons again there instead of just waiting for Amazon to fix its problems. But this deck is going to have a massive increase. It's just a massive amount of mana to cast a lot of these creatures. But they look to be pretty fairly big impact creatures. For sure. But also, I think Sauron... Being that we are going to be kind of stuck with him, I mean, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you amass, and then goblins and orcs, you get, like, Ward 2. I don't think it's necessarily stronger than the Dark Lord. But we have like 40 cards that potentially could be there, so I don't know if it's worthwhile to put Sauron the Dark Lord as the commander or not. As you sacrifice... If an opponent casts a spell, you amass Orcs 1, but it's a 6-drop, so it's going to come out at least 2 turns after Saruman, White Hand. But Saruman the White Hand needs non-creature spells to hit the battlefield just to amass Orcs 1. Or it's Orcs X, where X is the spell's mana value. So even though Saruman is a lower cost, he doesn't really get any major effects unless you're casting spells that have a pretty decent mana size. Which means, like, our 3-drop spells are probably going to be fine. Like, this is a 5-drop, we got a 2-drop, 3-drop. Yeah, so like out of all these cards here, we got like 3 cards here going 3 to 5. It's basically just making your spells have costs. So most of these are like 4 drops, 3 drops. It's kind of hard to tell what would be the best because like some of these cards just it wouldn't really matter so much, but you might want to get value out of them early. And at that point, Sauron might be the best option for it. Commander Sphere. Let me go ahead and look for oh, see if I have any card sleeves over here. I don't know about card sleeves, but we have a couple of the equipments that we had for some different decks and the Angelic Skirmisher foil for the Marchesa deck. So we can take these out potentially, and then I will slide Legolas into this sleeve, and I will slide Greyhavens into this sleeve, and then I will put them into a card book until we get the other decks situated, potentially. I think for these, I'll just go from the back side. They'll be all right back there until... Oop. I need to get a different deck box, or card sleeve book thing. I think probably like a hardback. Because that thing right there, I could see you bending your cards on accident, for sure. These cards I'll just slide... Oh... into somewhere. I'll slide it in here with this coat of arms. I'll put the scimitar in between them, so maybe it'll help. Yeah. I'm pretty sure these cards were up here for the Queen Marchesa deck, but I don't remember off the top of my head. That deck's been on the back burner for a while. See, I was planning on getting a proxy version of Queen Marchesa to slot in instead of her card so I could have a cool looking commander. But then part of me wanted to put King Darien in the deck, at which point I wouldn't have a problem having Queen Marchesa in there if King Darien's inside the deck. But he's also a 6-drop, which would be kind of rough. But if we make a Nazgul deck for this, it's going to be black and blue. But we'll probably need all of these lands and stuff for the Sauron and the Saruman deck. So we could potentially buy an additional Dark Lord deck or get single cards and slot them over in the Queen Marchesa deck. I don't plan on my Marchesa deck needing that much mana fixing because I'm planning on doing basically the same thing I did with my Darien deck, which is just searching out equipments early to start putting lands on the field, which means that the lands putting from my deck onto the field are going to be my mana fixing, but I need to have like a primary color and low cost creatures that I can put down early to get advantage. So potentially what I want to do is I want to probably use like token gen cards, Precinct Captain, Argive Recruiter, um, Hero of Bladehold, stuff that produces like a token each turn. Like, um, there's one card in the Gundor deck over here that has like each turn you produce one soldier. And then I want like the battlements taunt from the battlements card potentially from Lord of the Rings. Yeah, these are a lot smoother than the other ones. Yeah, the top from the battlement cards from the other Lord of the Rings set I want to stick in there. But potentially all that deck is going to be is I think Queen Marchesa is like a 4-drop. But basically bow equipments, so assassin tokens will be able to hit with their death touch. Um, search cards that will get equipments out and attach them for free onto my creatures. And then keywords. They give my tokens really good power. So like there's a black card in the Lord of the Rings set that actually gives you all tokens get death touch. So that would probably be a big one. I was going to try and give them all keywords. So I was going to try and give all my creature tokens like First Strike, Double Strike, Lifelink, Menace, Haste, all that stuff and go overboard and like Trample. But I think I'm deciding to ease back on stuff like Trample. I don't necessarily care about Trample. I'm going to have the Dragon Throne in there. It's got searchable equipment. So I'm going to be able to get that on the battlefield, and that's going to be like my trample card that could end the game. But I was going to put like a demon card in there that gives all your creatures trample for like, I just don't think trample is necessary, really. Whereas like death touch would be really strong. It wouldn't really matter for like my commander because she makes death touch tokens, but for my soldiers, it would matter. Just having access to that. And then that means that I could have that card plus like Aldrich Master Tactician, um, which in combination with Marchesa would give me, 3 sources of death touch in the deck, which would be pretty nice. If there's any more, I could potentially get those as well. Then you also got like equipments that you could use. But I figure I don't necessarily want a deck that's just going to steamroll people. I want to be like a political deck. And my goal for that deck in particular is instead of having just keywords, I want to have a defense. And there's a lot of like there's 2 shields and a bunch of other cards that make it to where your creatures can block an additional creature each turn. So I just want like an indestructible death touch creature that can block like 6 creatures per turn. Like imagine if I have 20 tokens and each of those tokens can block 4 creatures. That's the kind of stuff that I'm planning. So it's kind of like pillow fort with soldiers, but then I want to give my soldiers to people. So I'm going to put like assault armor in there, assault suit, and give people, like if I have like a precinct captain, I get them down early. I stick a sword on them or something, and then I can get assault suit attached onto it and give it to people. So like I would be able to attack and proc and get a land, for instance, and then I would be able to say get one soldier token, and then I could have assault suit attached to them, and then be like, hey, I'll give you control of this if you help me or blah blah blah. So I would give them control of my thing. I could basically control who gets additional mana ramp on the field and who's going to be like my primary ally that I have to betray later. And they're going to be less inclined to try and kill the creature off with the assault armor if they're getting additional land from it. Which means then they're going to attack each other with it because they want the additional land, and they will each get an additional creature, which depending on their deck could also help them. So they keep doing that. They're blocking, attacking, whatever. I use my death touch tokens to kind of kill things off before people are able to get any advantage out of them. Like if they try to sack a token, I could just death touch ping it before they'd have a chance to. And then I would have a card that basically, instead of having board wipes, I'm going to have cards that goad targets. So there's an equipment that does it. So I could stick the equipment on one of my creatures, give them to each person, and then they hit each other and they start goading each other for me. Or I can have. Actually, that might not be the best thing because if that means if I give them a goad creature, they hit somebody, then that person's goaded and they might be. Actually, that's kind of interesting because that means if I give the goad sword to my creature, assault suit it to one of the enemies, then they attack my enemy. That person gets goaded, but they can't attack the person that I gave the creature to. Then I don't give them a creature the next turn, and then it forces them to attack into my army with Queen Marchesa, which would be pretty interesting. The other thing is like I want stuff that prevents damage to my creatures or give them indestructible. And I'm gonna have Light Mine Field as a card. So if people attack me with a bunch of creatures, they're just gonna get completely wrecked. Um, so that's gonna be pretty good. It's basically gonna be like a Pillow Fort deck, but not a Pillow Fort deck. It's gonna be like a political army deck, and I want to use my enemies as additional turns, if you will. Is essentially how it's happening. But all the goad cards that I want to use, like the taunt from the ramparts from the Lord of the Rings set, I think is just good because it makes it to where no one can block when you use it, and then they have to attack each other. So for me, that would be like a game-ending card. Like if I had an army, I could pop that, then smack somebody till they're almost dead, and then force them to attack somebody on their turn, and then force the other enemy to finish off the first enemy, and then it would come my turn again, and then that enemy that's left would have no blockers, and I could swing in with them as well. But yeah, basically just because people don't think about Marchesa too much, I think I want to put a Ring of Power in her deck as well. I thought about trying to put like the Crown of Gundor in there because I wanted a crown like a while back. There is a crown that like a crown and a scepter and stuff of empires that allows you to um, create tokens and tap creatures and things, or destroy creatures, do like 1 damage to stuff, which I find interesting. I just don't know how useful that stuff would be thematically. But when it comes down to like the Crown of Gundor, it gives you like +1/+1 for each creature that you control. And I've tried to use equipments like that in the past. They're okay, but I just think they fall off. Whereas like there's like the Mace of the Vigilant or the Gavel There's a few different cards like that where you get like plus one for each counter that's on the weapon. So even if they wipe out all your creatures and stuff, um, you still have all the counters on it, and it keeps growing each turn. Or like Black Blade Reforged, because like land destruction's so frowned upon. Like if it's on the field, you just equip it to a token, then you have like a Death Touch 10/10. That's what I'm saying with that is like I think my biggest weak spot in that deck is going to be if people have indestructible creatures. Because the only thing that I know that gets rid of indestructible off the top of my head is the Shadow Spear. So like I would have a Shadow Spear in the deck, but I don't know how useful it'd be. But my main thinking was just like there's a lot of cards that I never use that actually could be pretty decent. And I'm going to use the Lithoform Engine combo thing that I have, what I use with Darien. So basically, instead of using Mana Rocks, I use Lithoform Engine and stuff with my swords. So when I attack and combat, it triggers the sword. I get to pull a land out of my deck. And then I can trigger like Lithoform Engine and copy the effect and pull 2 lands out of my deck. Even if it's like 4 mana, it's like 2 mana per land. And it siphons your deck out really quick. So if the only way people really stop it is to destroy all your creatures and all of your artifacts early game, um, which kind of sucks, but in a way it's also good. So like my King Darien, for instance, one of his big weak spots is that what's happening here? Oop. One of my Darien's weak spots is that he costs a bunch of mana. And so if somebody targets him and keeps killing him over and over again, or if they keep destroying his mana base over and over again, then he just becomes too expensive to cast. So the swords that I use actually help me get him on the battlefield and keep him there. Because early game, I got like weaker creatures that they could ping, but if they do that, then they don't have any removal for when Darien hits the field. And if they destroy my artifacts, then they don't have any artifacts to destroy my bigger mana rocks later, which is pretty good. So we got 2 leftover things. I gotta count these. So we got 2 cards there. 3, 4, 5, 6. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. Jesus. 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50. 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100. Why do I have 2 additional card sleeves here? So that's 100 card sleeves. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 44, 1, 42, 45, 46. Oh, crap. I already messed up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we just have two additional card sleeves for some reason. Weird. Guess I'll put these thick cards in there. Why not? I wish I could get a whole deck of these thick cards because these things feel durable. But all right, that is two precons and a starter deck, as well as two sample gift packs. So pretty good pulls on the sample gift packs, I think. So we got the Nazgul card that we wanted, and we got Sauron of the Dark Lord, which honestly, maybe we should do a sample pull for those. I actually really like how these card sleeves feel on these extra thick cards too. Like they feel very strong and smooth and slick. There's no give, and it makes the artwork on the back look really good. Cool. All right. Yeah, so each of these has basically 20 cards. So we're going to do a sample pull of this deck. Just keep in mind that the Nazgul replaced the Fellbeast and the Sauron the Dark Lord replaced the Troll of Khazad-dûm. Something to keep in mind. It's not going to be as good as like most of my separations because I like to make my decks 50-50 or like a third lands evenly mixed. Because these probably aren't going to do the best job mixing it. kind of thick. Okay. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. So we got 3 lands and 4 creatures. And then we get 4 lands, 5 creatures, sorcery. Yeah, I think it's alright. Oh, and then we got Sauron, the Dark Lord. Here's my thing, though, is like, if we look at these top ones, how many of these are sorceries? So we got 1. Yeah, so like, out of all these cards, like, we would get Sauron down at turn 4, and then we'd have nothing happening for a while until, like, turn 6 or something, where we can draw 4 cards. So that would give us, like, a mass 6. Anyway, Dark Lord's going in the 99 for now. We'll test this out tomorrow, because now we have 2 decks here. To play. And I guess I doubt these deck boxes hold all these cards. I very much doubt it. Be good if I could just bring these tomorrow and not have to worry about a box. Actually, yeah, actually pretty close. Because I have a big box of things that I use, so it's actually pretty nice that I can put those in here. I don't know if I can fit my life counter in there. That'd be good. We actually also have the Needless Eye in here. When it enters, gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap. Haste until end of turn. Creatures you control get 2/0. So like I have all these starter pack cards that I could potentially swap in to change some of this deck as well. So that is also something to keep note of, because I have additional commanders in both of those. So like we have Aragorn and Eowyn Wed, which Legolas could slot into. I believe it's the same colors, 2-color deck. So there is that. But now we have Eowyn Shield Maiden versus Sauron, or yeah, Saruman and Sauron. I don't know how that's going to pan out, but surely it'll be okay. See, with the human deck, see these things, they stick together. Compared to my other sleeves that I just got, these things are way more sticky. They don't seem to want to flow in very easily. But if we get an additional deck of these, I mean, we could get potentially 2 more decks, maybe. Depending on how much they cost in store. Okay, so now we have these. Good to go. And then we will have 2 cards here we can sleeve. With these 2 cards we can sleeve. Then we will have all of these tokens and the 1 ring card. As well as these. We're going to stick these all here. And then I will bring the starter box potentially tomorrow as well. And then hopefully we get to keep our job this week because our company got bought out. And the new owners are doing interviews. And you've seen my hair. I've been trying to grow it out, but I do not know how to manage it. So hopefully they consider me still professional enough to do the job. But that has been 2 precon openings and a starter box opening, as well as 2 sample booster packs, collector booster packs. So hopefully that lets you know kind of what you're dealing with when you do these. Deck-wise, though, I think we got a pretty lucky pull out of here. And these 2 decks, I don't remember exactly what was in here, but we know we at least have these 2 additional commanders, which Aragorn, when it enters the battlefield or attacks, you put a 1/1 counter on each creature. I don't think that we have access to green with this deck, so I don't think we can use him. But Sauron the Leadless Eye enters, you gain control of a target creature until the end of turn, and then you untap it, gets haste, and then creatures you control get 2/0 until end of turn, I believe, and then each opponent loses 2 life. That would be pretty good for here, but it's also an additional Sauron card. But I'm going to hop off here. Y'all guys have a good one, and we'll see you.